right. For the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He's the founder and CEO of Lateral Solutions, and of course, a best selling author too, and the author of the book, The Curious Leader. No other than Mr. Jon Bassford. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. John. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me. First of all, my name is Jon Bassford. I live in Maryland in the DC metro area. I'm a consultant, speaker, and author, and excited to be here.
Yes, and Mr. Jon Bassford. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. How do you define curious leadership and why is it particularly relevant today?
Sure. So, curious leader actually encompasses several aspects, right? It's a combination of innovation, empathy, leading cultures with openness. What I really talk about in the curious leader is that to be a curious leader, there needs to be three shifts. A shift in how we think, how we work, and how we connect. And what that translates to is for how we think is about moving from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. For how we work, it's about driving operational excellence, which I define as an organization's ability to achieve its intended results as efficiently and effectively as possible. And the last part of it is how we connect it, is what our culture is. And a curious culture is about creating an openness, creating a psychological safety where employees feel empowered to speak up, to point out problems, to bring solutions. It breaks down, hierarchies and silos, and those three shifts are really what's required to be a curious leader.
Mr. John, what inspired you to connect curiosity with effective leadership in this book?
Yeah, so I got to admit that it came on me in the last couple of years. Looking back, once I kind of discovered curiosity as my superpower, looking back at my life, my career, curiosity has always been a through line. And actually, about 10 years ago, when I was doing some networking and a career change, a colleague of mine introduced me to an academic who specializes in how people to define their superpower. And after some interviews and questionnaires, he came back with curiosity as mine. And quite frankly, I didn't do a whole lot with it. I thought it was cool. It just didn't resonate at the time. But fast forward to a couple of years ago, I was working with a branding company and did a deep dive with them, and curiosity came up again. And that's really what I took note and really started thinking about curiosity throughout my life and throughout my career. And for me, early in my career, my ability to ask questions and challenge the status quo. And what I mean by that is just not accept, this is what we're supposed to do because this is what we do, but go deeper and analyze and find better solutions. And really, when I started diving into curiosity for this book, I really started to discover how many great innovators all talk about curiosity. Even Einstein himself says curiosity has its own reason for existing. So there's no doubt in my mind that any business, any organization that wants to stay relevant, wants to innovate, grow, and change, there's no doubt that curiosity has to be a part of that solution.
How does curious leadership differ from a traditional command and control styles?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's the exact opposite of it, right? Today's business and organization environment, we're no longer sitting on assembly lines, building the same part every single day, all day long, regardless of what is happening around us. And so, that was a very top down, people stay in their lanes, people do their jobs, and it fit for that type of environment. But today, our organizations, yes, there's still Fortune 500 big manufacturing companies, but most organizations are small. And everyone has a unique insight into how that organization runs. And because of that, this top down, one person having all the answers, one person discovering all the problems just doesn't work. You really got to tap into the entire team to hear from them, the problems that are existing, better ways to do things, problems to solve, solutions to be discovered, right? You really have to do that. And the old school of micromanagement, top down, just doesn't work if you want to create an organization that truly wants to innovate, grow, and change.
Let's talk about the innovation and growth, Mr. John. What specific practices can leaders use to cultivate curiosity in their teams?
Sure. Within the teams, curious leader is really based the a main function of curious culture is a concept called psychological safety. And this actually came from a Google study. Google internally was trying to define what makes teams successful. DEI, degrees, whatever it may be. And what they came back with after thousands of hours of interviews in forums and all this stuff, they came back with psychological safety. And what that really means is in an environment where employees feel empowered to point out problems, bring solutions. Speak up, speak out. On metros and other places, in cities, they always have the mantra of, if you see something, say something. Psychological safety brings that to our organizations and our businesses that allows employees to speak up and point out problems and solutions. And that's really the best way to do that. There's a couple of techniques that I talk about that really can help a leader become more curious with their team and create this curious culture. One of them is leaders speaking last. We all know what happens when a leader's in a meeting. The first thing they do is give their opinion. What they see is wrong, what they see is the solution. And what they just did in that meeting was bring the entire team their direction. Unless you already have a curious culture, there's going to be very few people that will completely disagree with the CEO or the manager. But even more importantly, probably just it will bring their view that direction. So it's not entirely honest and transparent. But when you let your staff speak first, it allows for an unbiased, untarnished view of the situation.
How does curiosity help organizations balance innovations with execution, Mr. John?
That is a fantastic question. And actually, I just shot some videos on that today. So look, I'm an operations guy, right? I believe in systems, process, procedures. That's way to make sure things are getting done effectively and efficiently, make sure mistakes are caught, all kinds of things that happen with having the right process, procedures, and systems in place. The problem becomes is that we are creatures of habit. We are creatures of comfort. So our organizations become creatures of habit and comfort. And what happens is organizations stay stuck in those systems and process procedures without allowing for a mechanism to challenge those. And that's what curiosity does. It allows for that process of challenging what we're doing. And by challenging, I don't mean burning the building down, but be able to go to your boss, your manager, your CEO, and say, hey, look, we've been doing it this way, but I'm telling you right now, I can cut out 20% of the time, get it done faster, get it done better if we change how we do this. And that's where curiosity allows for systems, processes, and procedures, but enhances them by constantly innovating. I kind of look at it as, in the software world, there's agile development, where they're constantly developing software while it's active, while it's out and about, while it's released. And that's what curiosity does in day-to-day operations.
So let's talk about the team empowerment, Mr. John. What is the relationship between leader curiosity and employee empowerment?
Sure. To me, that's everything, right? Unless you are the lead singer of a one-person band, you got to bring the team along with you. No leader, no matter how great they are, can lead a business organization to a certain size without the team's support and commitment. And what curiosity does for the leader is allows them to let their guard down, right? Allow them to not feel like they have to have all the answers, not feel like they have to control everything, not feel like they that everything has to come through and from them. And when the leader does that, changes their mindset on what a leader is, it opens it up to the employees. It allows the staff to see that and to bring, again, pointing out the problems, bringing solutions, being a part of it. And a big part of how this all works is it's I do believe that culture has to be led from the top down, and so it's got to be communicated from the leader. They have to show that they are creating this curious culture. They have to show that they're creating psychological safety in the organization to empower their team to have that ability and the confidence to do all these things. And it's one of the most simplest things to do is for leaders to really get to know their staff. Find out what winds their clock, what makes them excited about coming to work, learn who they are, what they are, what their future holds, what their goals and ambitions are. And in those conversations, also ask them, what do you see wrong? What are some ways that we can help you do your job? If you could redo a process or procedure, how would you do it? So it's these one-on-one conversations. It's these setting up these mechanisms that showcase that the leader can showcase that they've made a change, or that they're open to all of these the psychological safety aspect and the curious culture. And as the team starts seeing that, they're going to feel empowered to bring those ideas, point out the problems, and help solve problems in more real time.
Mr. John, what mistakes do leaders make when trying to ask better questions?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem that leaders run into, not so much asking better questions, but just being willing to ask questions. Throughout my career as an operations professional, I had to know a little bit about everything. I didn't know everything about everything. And so there were times that I had to look dumb. And I wasn't dumb, but I had to look dumb, right? I had to go deep on questions. I had to pretend I didn't understand so that I could bring more information out of vendors, out of staff, out of customers, whatever it may be. But you got to have that humility there to seem like you don't have all the right answers and have all the answers, in order to ask those open-ended questions and solicit the information that you need from others.
Let's talk about the management or change management, Mr. John. How does curious leadership make organizational change less resistant?
Yeah, so I mean, it's the catalyst for change, right? Having a curious culture, having curious leadership, having curious operations is what truly drives change, because what it allows you to do is look beyond your current situations and limitations, and that manifests itself in several ways, right? It allows people to knock on the door and quite frankly say, this isn't working. I have a better idea. There's a better solution out there. Have we thought about doing this? Can I try this? Early on in my career, I was very, very lucky to have some bosses, management and CEO, that allowed me to ask questions and knew I was doing it from a place of curiosity, not judgment. To quote the Taoist philosopher Ted Lasso, "Be curious, not judgmental." But they allowed me to ask questions and dive deep into things and figure out why we're doing things a certain way. And because they allowed me to do that, that allowed me to bring a solution, to bring a new path forward that really changed these organizations for the better. I mean, one simple change that I made from asking some questions allowed this organization to improve or increase its revenue 5% year over year for 6 years, because I asked one question and changed one communication strategy.
Very well said, Mr. John. Very well said. As a founder, As a founder and CEO of Lateral Solutions, as well as a best-selling author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Yeah, so right now I'm working on a lot around the Curious brand, and I'm developing a brand around the Curious Advantage, because I think that that's the key, right? By adopting curiosity, it gives your organization an advantage over others to be able to innovate, grow, and change quicker, more efficiently, more effectively. And so we're getting ready to roll out some assessments around curiosity, a Curious Leader assessment, a Curious Culture assessment, and look, really working on building that up, helping people see, where they fall in this curious leadership and culture aspects against other archetypes. And I think that's going to be a real game changer. Beyond that, I'm also, growing my speaking, growing my curious leadership workshops. And my goal is to just really build a brand around this long term and really help leaders and organizations innovate, grow, and change.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. John, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a founder as well as an author?
Yeah, so founders, have an idea, figure out what it is that you bring to the world, what you're good at, find a way to monetize it, find a way to scale it, and just go for it. Right? There's never going to be a right time. Just go for it. And for author, for that piece, I'm actually about to finish up a second book that actually started before The Curious Leader, but the publishing side of things didn't happen as quickly. If you have an idea that you're passionate about and that speaks to you, that inside and out, just start writing. If it's truly meant to be and is truly, part of who you are, it will write itself.
Good. Thank you for that advice, Mr. John. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence you, Johnny?
Sure. So I'll have to mention a book not very popular or well known. I should say that's not popular, not well known, but it changed my life. The book is called The Soul Without Shame. And what it is a book that talks about the psychology, biology, and evolution of why we have self-doubts and why we can be confident one minute and doubt ourselves the next. And it really goes deep into why that exists and how it no longer serves us in a modern day era. And it really, led me on a path of self-discovery and learning about consciousness and mindfulness and letting go and believing in myself even further than I was before. So definitely get if you struggle with self-doubt, self-belief, or just want to enhance those areas in general, pick up the book The Soul Without Shame.
Thank you for that recommended book, Mr. John. And how does curious leader or leadership affect company culture differently than other style?
Yeah, so to truly adopt a curious culture, it changes everything, right? It changes the way the leadership speaks, how they hold meetings, how they interact with their employees. It changes, how you operate on a day-to-day basis. Again, it's really all about opening things up, not feeling like the leaders have to control everything. All ideas have to come from them. It's truly about opening it up, empowering your team, getting to know your team, and letting them be a part of the solution instead of just the finger pointing. Vast majority of times that I see leaders who want to control everything and the ideas have to come from them. One of the first things they do when there's a problem, when they're not reaching their numbers, is they go to the staff and say, what's going wrong? When it was in their entire vision, their mission, their operations, their ideas, their execution all along, and they have the audacity to ask the team now that things aren't working out what the problem is and almost kind of point fingers at them. Where curiosity brings them into the fold way earlier, allows them to be a part of the vision, be a part of the mission, be a part of the execution, be a part of problem solving, being a part of new ideas. That's truly what creating a curious culture does. And you tap into your team so that you're not stuck wondering why the organization is failing now, why we're not hitting our numbers, but you're able to tap into them on a real-time basis to continually solve problems and go to new heights.
What metrics can track at the impact of a curious leadership on an organizations?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One, I think first and foremost, that's going to speak to every CEO leader out there is the numbers, right? You are going to have more success. You're going to be more profitable. You're going to have more sales. Like all of these things are going to improve. But another aspect of this is that you are going to have a more satisfied team. You're going to have less turnover, and you're truly going to see the environment change to where even though you're still focused on results and goals and achievements, the organization becomes lighter. It's tough to know exactly what causes that, right? But it can happen in an instant where because everyone just starts having fun. Everyone's rowing the same direction in the boat, and they're all working together towards the same goal. And when you have that, and you can experiment, you can play. Words like there's no room for failure don't exist in a curious culture. So it brings that weight down as well. But when it's truly all working together, the organization's humming together, rowing the same boat, it's just so much better of an environment, and people are just happier. They want to come to work, and they do a lot better job while they're there.
Mr. Gunn, how will AI and technology change the need for human curiosity in leadership?
Yeah, I think same with the internet. The internet first was the first one on board that gave us access to more information, more data, more tools. AI is going to do the same thing. It's going to change the way we work. I don't go down the rabbit hole of it replacing employees. That may come at some point, but for most jobs and organizations, that's not the case. But what AI can do is allow an individual to be curious much quicker. I use AI every single day. I use it in my personal life for evaluating stocks and SEC filings about stocks I own, all the way to helping me, vet things I write and to research and to find examples for my talks and my books and everything. AI is going to allow our curiosity happen at a much deeper level.
How should curious leadership adapt across different industries?
Sure, I think curious leadership is agnostic, right? It's even some organizations that have to be more traditional, accounting, legal, pharmaceuticals, where you're testing things, right? There are certain industries without a doubt that have to be a little more traditional in how they operate. But even with those, there's always ways to bring up more curiosity, especially on the culture side, right? To allow people to bring ideas and point out problems. That can happen in any industry. And what it really does, again, is just really help an organization to look beyond their current situations and limitations and really take the organization to new heights.
Mr. Gunn, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101 love letters in its third season, and movie 101 review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Mr. John, if you could instill one curious leadership practice in every manager, what would it be?
So I mentioned a couple, right? Getting to know your staff and learning to speak last. And I'll add a third one onto that, which is we often as leaders tend to not tap into the people that can help us be the most curious, and that's the new people, right? We all know what happens when the new person is asked to share an idea in a meeting. We all grumble and say things like, they've been here for 5 minutes, what could they offer? But new people in your organization have the freshest eyes, the freshest perspective. They're not tied down to the habits, traditions of your organization, it can truly give you the most curious eye into your organization, what it's doing and how it's doing it.
Mr. Jon Bassford, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, your books, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, the best way to see what I'm doing. So my consulting website is think-lateral.com, and my personal brand is jonbassford.com, Jon Bassford.com, and those are the best ways to see what I'm doing and reach out.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Jon Bassford because if you support him for sure, more and more and more empowering, curious leader to come, more or leaders to come, and more empowering advocacy to come, and for sure, more and more empowering business to come. So, Mr. Jon, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.